Alright everyone, this is a video that a lot of people actually have messaged me about on Twitter and encouraged me to make something akin to this, which is actually a video on my thought of Dutch politics. Now, first and foremost as a caveat, because I am not a citizen of the Netherlands, I can't vote or hold office obviously, I am not going to endorse anyone per se, because I don't believe it's really my place as a guest in the country. This is really more about my reflections on what I can glean from the political situation based on what I see literally out there in the street, on TV, and also what's relayed to me by my wife, by Liz, because of course she speaks Dutch. I don't, I need translation services. I should be paying a fee. Anyway, here are some of my sort of reflections. First and foremost, the only time that I've seen anyone out doing any like campaign stuff, I know the Dutch election, how many days is it? Like 5 days from now, I think? Or less than that, I think. Is it Friday?
It's the 17th.
Yeah, okay, so only a couple of days away. So, like, in the United States, 2 days before a major election, it's chaos, even in small-town America. One thing you never see here are, like, lawn signs, including in residential areas where people have, like, gardens and little front lawns and stuff. Not a single sign. Politics in the Netherlands, from the outside looking in, is a lot more reserved than it is in the United States. In the U.S., it's almost like a party atmosphere before an election for months. And you see lawn signs, and some people go even further to have like little, like effigies and shit of candidates, whether they like them or not, put up signs, and they sit on street corners with signs saying, vote yay, vote nay. That's not really, it doesn't seem to be quite as much of a thing here. It's more interpersonal and reserved. There was only one person that I saw out by the local grocery store that was handing out little political flyers. It was actually from the Green Party. Now, it was this little old lady, and then she seemed nice and stuff. It would have been funny if I told her, like, if I were able to vote in the Netherlands, I think yours would be the last party I would vote for. But it's like, I'll show this to Liz, maybe she'll find it funny. That or the Socialist Party. I think both of them have collapsed, by the way, systemically. And Wilders, I think his party is now the second largest, or the second most popular, and probably will gain more dominance. It's kind of difficult to tell, though, what'll end up happening politically, because Mark Rutte, I think, still comes out on top. Again, that's based on my preliminary and limited analysis of it. Now, I'd like to talk a little bit about the candidates, because you sort of get to see them on TV and stuff. And again, keeping in mind, I'm more reading the way in which they interact with people in the sense of gestures, eye contact, things like that, and it can actually be helpful. I've done this with debates that are in English before as well. You can watch people's micro reactions and things like that, and you can sort of get a feel for things just as well as if you can hear what they're saying. When a politician speaks, typically it's not even true. If you can divorce yourself from what's being said and look at how it's being said, intonation, insinuation, any evidence of the use of weasel words, propaganda, it's actually fascinating. When I look, for instance, at Mark Rutte, here's an individual, he seems to be very polarizing. I think that would probably be the best term for it. It seems like there are a lot of people who are like, that like either, he's the best possible candidate, maybe not even good, but least bad, and I know there are a lot of apolitical people, including myself sometimes, that think that way during elections, or people fucking hate him. And it seems that the latter is, I think, more common now, and I'm assuming that has to do mainly with the lockdowns. There have been protests and riots in central Amsterdam now, sporadically for a number of weeks. It's on TV, it trends constantly on Twitter, and that's the other thing. As an American, it's very frustrating that every single time I log into Twitter, it automatically resets to Dutch trends. Because sometimes I do want, English news. Just to be clear, Jack Dorsey. Not that Twitter's been useful for news aggregation for a number of years. You're better off using fucking 4chan. Hell, you'd probably be better off using certain subreddits. That's really friggin' sad. I think ultimately, if I were Dutch, I would probably end up siding with here Wilders the most. And I understand that's amusing, I'm sure, to some Dutch people because, of course, I'd be an immigrant. And he gets this billing as though he's extreme and racist and stuff. But actually, I've seen more ire directed at Thierry Baudet on that particular, or is it Baudet? Which, is it like a French-style pronunciation? It is, so it's Baudet? Okay. I gotta make sure because I get crucified every single time I mispronounce something, even if it's not in the same language. he seems to take more heat than Wilders, though. I think that the operative strategy, it seems, but the MSM obviously likes Mark Rutte the most. To be clear, it's the bias is definite enough so that I don't even need to understand much about the Dutch language to tell that that's the case. With Wilders, it seems like they're trying to starve him of oxygen, sort of like they've done to Trump, and just not talk about him at all. Sort of put it like when that debate was happening, for instance, between the candidates. Who was in the very back, off to the side, sort of in the dark? It was Geert Wilders. Now, I don't think it was alphabetical the way they were arranged. I think that it was for a reason. By the way, the other day, actually, Liz called me over, and this is funny. She's like, here, Wilders, he's going to be painting a picture, so of course I had to see that. Unfortunately, it was actually just this show where a dude who does painting was talking to Wilders. I wanted to see Wilders draw a little smiley face or something, and he's got he's part of the cool messy hair club, along with like Trump and Boris Johnson, which seems to be a trend in populist politics. I think overall he seems to me to be the most likable. Baudet, meanwhile, is interesting. I think his party has collapsed too, along with the Greens, if I remember correctly, to like 4 or 5%, which is pretty low. I think in 5th place or something. Number one, he seems to get frustrated easily, like walking off interviews, and this was something that even with my limited Dutch I could tell. Like, it was trending on Twitter the other day. He walked off of yet another show where someone was talking down to him, and this is like a trend for him, and sort of sets himself up as a younger version of Wilders, like a more urban style cosmopolitan here Wilders, and it doesn't seem to be working very well, and I can imagine why. But people lash out at him, again, at this point I think a fairly minor candidate in the race, calling him like a Nazi, an extreme, and I think over comments related mainly to immigration. And I'm thinking to myself, this shows maybe why the left is systemically collapsing, because you've got this candidate who maybe is more spit shine for the cameras, like looks like he comes from, there's a music video from a Dutch band called De Bomb. It's actually pretty good. It's really good. Huh? Doemar? Yeah, again, probably mispronouncing slightly. My apologies, people all over Holland. I'm making a fool of myself, unfortunately. Keep in mind, not my Dutch, not my native language, so yes. But Baudet, they aim so much firepower at him, especially like the younger, like the Twitter echo chamber left, constantly ranting about him, and they don't even talk about Wilders, who's sitting at, I think, almost 25% in the polling. The left is not necessarily the greatest at grand strategy. And then you've got the Green Party, the socialists, various left-wing movements. The only thing I can say about them is the Green Party here seems to have the same stagnant platform as every other green movement in the world. Like, it seems to be basically like, hey, we're actually on the left, as opposed to other candidates standing in and pretending. Basically, just vote for us. We're hippies. That seems to be sort of what the Green Party is about. And smoking green, of course. It's funny because actually I think Rutte's people are optioning the idea of not selling cannabis to tourists, and I'm like, yeah, you want half of Amsterdam's revenue to dry up. That's not necessarily the greatest economic proposal. And the dude who runs the Socialist Party, or who is standing as their main candidate, just seems like a goofball to me. Like, he looks like he's about, fucking 30 years old. He looks like he might be younger than I am. So that shows you, again, there are certain movements in politics in the world that are serious, that are actually attempting to win. And there are others that usually, they'll have like a few people in a parliament, or they'll have like some local political movement, and they just are single issue. This is sort of like the Pirate Party, but by the way, in a separate update not related to the Netherlands, the Pirate Party now favored to be the largest party in the Czech Republic, which is hysterical. They stand for direct democracy and a lot of like tech activism. They got some good ideas. Overall, they tend to be a fairly left-leaning movement because of the nature of direct democracy being two wolves and a sheep deciding what to have for dinner. So yeah, that's just a general, broad overview of my limited understanding of Dutch politics. Again, this is not based on me understanding the Dutch language and reading newspapers and stuff like that. It's based on trends online, which are often translated, TV slots, which are fairly common. It seems to be a fairly big spectator sport, politics, within the Netherlands. It's just that it's not out in the open in your face when you're going to the grocery store, so to speak. My sense, my intuition on the subject is that it would be considered to be just unorthodox. It would just be considered to be not culturally acceptable.
Not classy.
Yes, not classy. Like if you wrap yourself in the Dutch flag and roll down the street in a motorcycle, here Wilders, here Wilders. I think that would come off as redneckish or bizarre. It would probably harm the candidate more than help them. Yeah, it's almost an inversion of the United States, especially recently, where what we've seen is that the more in-your-face, knock on every door, shake every hand, kiss every baby, 10,000 lawn signs, make sure there are 100 U.S. flags up on stage with you, fireworks and saxophones and blaring trumpets. It's totally... I don't think that Americans would be able to comprehend, in many cases, Dutch politics, because in that sense it's boring. And at the same time, it's not that sparks don't fly, it's just that there's almost a premium put on keeping it together even during the most hot of debates, which again may be Baudet's problem, because he walks off stage when he's merely questioned about things. He almost, I hate to say it, he's acting like Joe Biden minus 40 years. It seems sort of like that. So yeah, just a general feeling on that, helped by, of course, my very helpful wife Liz, because I don't speak much Dutch. I can say some dirty words in Dutch. I'm not going to do that. Yeah, we'll maintain Dutch-style decorum and cultural standards on this particular video. That's about all. Peace out.